In every draft class, there are players who are overrated and players who are underrated. And if you're overrated, that's not to say you're not going to be a good NFL player. It's that your average draft position or consensus ranking is just too high. And if you're underrated, it's the opposite. So today, me and my co-host Nick Corbs are going to be going over players in the 2025 NFL draft class who we think are being overrated and underrated. The draft's only a few days away. Are you excited?
I can't wait, Dom. Draft day Thursday night, 1 a.m. UK time. Exams be damned. I love the draft. It's like Christmas and birthdays rolled into one, and I just can't wait for it to come around.
The draft is one of the best days of the year, absolutely, no doubt. We're going to have, then, 6 players each. So me and Nu are going to have 3 overrated and 3 underrated players. We don't know who the other one has. There might be overlap. There might even be disagreement. One of us might have the same player in overrated as compared to underrated. We're going to start with overrated, Nu, and then we're going to start with you. Who is your first overrated player?
So my first my first overrated player, slightly controversial, is Travis Hunter, the cornerback wide receiver out of Colorado.
What?
Oh, I've always been a bit of a hater of Travis Hunter.
Fundamentally, oh my God.
Because he's number 1 on PFF's board, number 2 on Daniel Jeremiah's, top 3 pick in most mock drafts.
Yeah.
And recently he just came out and said that I will not play American football if I'm not played both ways. He will not be able to play both ways at the next level. I think that's well established. He can play corner and maybe a bit of receiver, but he cannot play 2 ways as he's done in college. As a cornerback prospect, I think he's a very good corner prospect. Very good in zone, great instincts, great athleticism. But I fundamentally don't think that that's valuable enough for a top 3 pick or the number 1 overall player where he's projected to go. I see him as a top 10 pick by that 5 to 10 range rather than the top 3 that most other people think.
Okay, we're gonna have a discussion about this. We're gonna have a discussion about this.
Yeah.
So you don't think Travis Hunter is a top 5 player in this draft class?
I'd probably put him at number 5. Yes, number 5, number 6, which is why I have him in my top 50.
Okay, and you don't think he's going to play both ways in the NFL at all, or?
Well, not in any meaningful way. I think he'll get snaps at wide receiver, but not as a consistent starter, not as in the top 3 snap share in a regular offense. I don't think so. No.
Okay. So I'm quite baffled by that statement.
I've laid out my stool.
I think Travis Hunter is pretty clearly the most talented player in this draft class. I think Abdul Carter has the highest ceiling. I think Ashton Genty is the best player at a pure position. But fundamentally, I think Travis Hunter is the most talented football player in this draft. He, for me, is 2 behind Abdul Carter, but I could definitely put him at 1 if I wanted to. And that's because, he is the best cornerback in this class, I think. He can play man, he can play zone. His game IQ is off the charts. I like Will Johnson, but I think that he's to the top 10 player for me. He's my 9th overall player at the moment. But Travis Hunter is the clear CB1. And I'm going to do my wide receiver rankings again. Travis Hunter's clearly wide receiver 2 behind McMillan. And I think he has wide receiver 1 potential if he committed to playing receiver full time. So for me, and I agree with you, I don't think he's going to play both ways in the same way he has at college, right? Because I think you're going to get diminishing returns. I think the playbooks are so much larger. You can't really play part-time corner. Everyone's more athletic. And, if Travis Hunter's playing 25 snaps at wide receiver a game, are you going to get the best cornerback version of Travis Hunter for his 25 snaps on that side of the ball? So I agree with you there. But I do think, though, that by getting the best cornerback in the class, by getting the best football player in the class, and by getting someone that can also come on the field for your offense in money downs, i.e. third downs, goal line situations, got to have it kind of downs, he plays. I can't believe there was a point there was a discussion at one point with Travis Hunter where he was just a pure snaps merchant and he was an average corner and average wide receiver. For me, he is really clearly CB1 and wide receiver 2. And so I think to say that he's not a top 5 or, not a top 3 player and that he's overrated is bonkers.
Well, because I agree with you. I think he is the most talented player in this draft class. I think that's something really important to get across. But how you implement that talent on the field is the question I have, because I think he's a great corner, but as a pure corner prospect, I don't think he's worth top 3. I think he's a very good wide receiver prospect. I have him as a 2A, 2B with Luther Burden. I don't think that's worth a top 3 pick either. And he's not going to play both consistently at the next level. Therefore, I don't think he can be a top 3 overall pick. I don't think those things stack on top of each other.
That's correct. No, if you're getting the best cornerback in the class and the second best wide receiver in the class for the same pick, and you can kind of
that's not true, because he's not going to play receiver all the time, so he's not actually the number 2 receiver.
But he'll still play receiver for 10 to 15 snaps.
That's not enough to be a number 2 receiver in the draft class. I'd rather have Luther Burden play every offensive snap than Travis Hunter.
You can't get Luther Burden and Will Johnson with the same pick.
Yeah,
so of course, as a pure receiver, you might want to have Luther Burden instead. But you're getting 2 players in one.
You're getting 1.5 at most. Like you said, it's 10 snaps most on offense. That's 1.5 plays. I do not see how these things stack, and that's why in my head he's not a top 3 overall pick.
That is, I just think that is one of the craziest takes you've ever cooked up. That is a diabolical take, Newt. And I'm sorry, I cannot defend you from what will be coming at you in these comments, because you can't say that he's the most talented player in the class and then have him 5. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because talented is because he's doing something that no one has ever done before. But no, he's not going to be able to do that at the next level. So in college, his talent is a different level. But in the NFL, he's going to have to learn one position. So therefore, even though he has the most talent, it's not going to be able to be applicable to the field.
But the only thing that's going to change from college to the wide receiver, from college to the NFL for him, is that he'll play 10 snaps less at wide receiver.
And everyone's better. Like, cornerback is famously one of the hardest positions to translate from. Think about Jeff Okudah, who went top 3 a couple of years back. He's on his 3rd team now, and he was a slam dunk cornerback prospect.
But that's cherry picking.
No, cornerback is one of those difficult positions to translate to. And if you think they can walk into that with ease,
Stingley, McDuffie, all from the same draft class, want to have a word with you about that.
I'm not saying that no cornerbacks do, but I'm saying it is famously, that and tackle are 2 of the most difficult positions to translate.
It's a very volatile
to the
position.
NFL.
It's a very volatile position, sure, but like the talent is the talent for the most part. Yeah, there are busts at every position. I don't think that's more or less than any other position for the most part. I think quarterback's probably got the highest bust rate, but I find that crazy. I find that absolutely crazy. I can't believe that you looked dead into the camera and said, I don't have Travis Hunter as a top 3.
Paddy can clip it. It's fine.
Oh my God. That is... Okay, well, I clearly disagree with that. That is bonkers. New said before we got on air, by the way, he said, I've got some pretty normie takes this episode. We'll leave it at this. I genuinely think that's one of the worst takes I've ever heard this draft cycle.
Not wrong, just early, Dom. Not wrong, just early.
Okay, right. Well, let's try and center ourselves. My overrated player is Jalon Walker, the linebacker from Georgia. Now, this guy's 10th on the consensus big board. He's 7th on the athletic big board. He's, I think, 5th on Daniel Jeremiah's big board. And I simply do not see it with Jalon Walker whatsoever. People are split on if he's going to be an off-ball linebacker, a pure edge player, or a hybrid player. Dane Brugler, Daniel Jeremiah all have him as a full-time edge. Trevor Sycamore from PFF sees him more as an off-ball linebacker. And I think this guy's fundamentally being overrated because he's played 249 snaps at edge this year versus 311 in the box. So he was more of a linebacker this year for Georgia than an edge rusher, and only has 195 pass rushing snaps this year, which would be 266th in college football amongst edge rushers. So he's very inexperienced as a pass rusher, a full-time pass rusher. He only has 388 pass rush snaps in his career now. Landon Jackson, Jack Sawyer, Donovan Ezeraku all have more than that this year alone. They have rushed the passer more times in 2024 than Jalon Walker has done in his whole career. Sure, he has a nice pass rush win rate, 17.2%. That's fine. That's nothing to shake a stick at, don't get me wrong. But it's not in the 20s or even, upwards of 22%, which is what you see from the elite pass rushers and what you're expecting when you're going to take a guy potentially with a top 10 overall pick. He's got 32-inch arms, so he's sawn off. He's inexperienced as a pass rusher. I think he's ineffective as a pass rusher in terms of his pass rush moves and pass rush plan. And his projection relies on a huge extrapolation of his athletic traits. So I just do not get it with Jalon Walker. He's a firm second-round guy for me.
So, Dom, if you were a GM, would you draft Jalon Walker as a linebacker or as an edge rusher? Where do you think he's most
that's the thing.
on the next level?
if I'm a GM, I'm not going to draft Jalon Walker because where I would need to draft him to get him, I wouldn't feel comfortable at that value. However, let's say for whatever reason he did fall to, I don't know, maybe even the Eagles at 32. If I was Harry Roseman, I think maybe, considering the success he's had with Georgia athletes, on the defense side of the ball in the past, I could kind of deal with him there. Fundamentally, his best plays on tape is when he's a QB spy, basically. And it's a bit rich to spend a high draft pick on someone that can do that. I would take a swing on him in the second with, let's say, maybe the Giants, if they wanted a player like that. I think with their pick at 34, I think they are. So I could kind of see that, but fundamentally, I'm not going to draft Jalon Walker if I'm a GM because I'm not going to take him in the first, and he's almost definitely going to go in the first.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jalon Walker's been a really hard one for me. I don't think I'm as aggressive as you on the take, but I keep on seesawing in between because I do think he is overrated, but I think I'd still probably have him as an end of the first round pick instead of a second.
Fair enough. Who's your second overrated player then, Nu? What are you going to come out with now? Jenny, what are you going to say?
Okay, I've got three. I'll give us everyone time to calm down because I think we probably the same take on this is Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama.
Nice.
He has accepted an invite to the NFL draft. He will be there in Vegas for the first round. Dan Jeremiah has him 22nd, I believe. Tyler Booker is not that good a football player. His combine was terrible. I do not see any elite upside at guard for him. He's just a classic okay production on a great O-line from a big school. Mike Mayock would love this guy, probably draft him in the top 10. But we're in a different time, and I really do not see the first round hype at all. If you want an interior lineman, go Gray Zabel, or even flip one of the guys to from tackle to guard. Donovan Jackson would be a great example. Obviously, Will Campbell's a different tier, but there's still plenty of candidates for it. But he's technically the best pure guard, if you want to call that, in the draft. But that is not saying that he's good. It's saying that everyone else isn't as good. It's a really weak guard class. So I think he's going to be pushed up boards because of that weaker class. But in my mind, he should be nowhere near a first-round pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a Tyler Booker guy at all. And as a Texans fan, I know we're going to be looking to draft offensive linemen essentially wherever we can find them. And I really hope it's not Tyler Booker. The thing is with Tyler Booker, though, is that he's so scheme-dependent, right? If you're the Dolphins, if you're the Rams, any team that runs outside zone, and any Shanahan tree, right? Maybe the Saints. Not the Saints. Where did the Saints OC go? Where did Kubiak go? I couldn't keep it. Coaching cycle was too long ago now. I'm too old into the draft. Anyway, essentially, any Shanahan coaching tree, Tyler Booker's not even going to be on your board because he's a man gap blocker. He's not a zone blocker. But I do think that the Eagles at 32, he'd be on the board for them. I think with what they run, I think the Steelers potentially. It's completely team dependent for Tyler Booker. So I don't like his movement skills, but people will say he's the Will Anderson of the offensive line. He's experienced and is refined. I'm with you though, Nu. I think he's being overrated. But and I don't think will he go in the first? I wouldn't take him in the first, but if he's been invited, he's gonna have it on good authority that he might be.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Because I look through boards and then normally mid-20s, which I think is semi-fair. But the fact they got invited to the combine, I think means at least the system thinks he's going to be drafted in the first round.
Well, you know what's crazy is that Dart and Sanders are there.
I did not know Dart is there.
And Milroe, no, Dart and Sanders are definitely there. Jackson Dart's going.
Oh, God, I feel so bad for those players who don't get picked in the green room after day one.
But why are you going? Why? This is the thing is, and I'll quickly touch on this. Last year, Darius Robinson was invited to the NFL draft, and everyone had him as a second-round edge rusher, and he was taken at 25 by the Cardinals. If you're invited, you have it on pretty good authority that there's a strong chance you're going to be taken on draft day because these prospects are the best of the best, or they think they're the best of the best at the very least. They don't want to go and be humiliated on national television on what is the first day of their career and have their name not called. So I find the fact that Dart's there, I find the fact that Tyler Booker's there pretty bold. But look, in the past, it's shown that there's a correlation between being invited and being drafted.
No, that's a good pull from you, though. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, they're going to go. It's basically insider trading. It's the crash. So my second overrated player, is Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
I've planted my flag on this guy so many times, and this is going to be the final time I'm going to say it, I hope. This guy's just, for me, I say all the time that the draft can often be a bit like emperor's new clothes. Someone stood up there who's stark naked, and everyone's going, "Oh my god, look how amazing his clothes are," and you feel like you're crazy because you're like, "No, that bloke's naked." Like, Matthew Golden is that for me. Like, he is the Emperor's New Clothes epitomized. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. His tape shows, yes, a good route runner. Traits that I like in a wide receiver, absolutely. But his tape also shows someone that struggles with physicality at 5'11", 191 pounds, and is only an adequate athlete. I'll talk about the adequate athlete in a second, but I think he'll be a nice number 2, right? A nice C receiver off the line of scrimmage, take him in the second round. Brilliant, I can get on board with that. But he is not wide receiver 1 in this class. If you take someone as the first wide receiver of the board, you are hoping they are a wide receiver 1, right? Inherently. I kind of feel like that shouldn't be a controversial statement. Like, if you're taking a receiver in the first round, you want them to be your guy. He's not a wide receiver 1. He's simply not dynamic enough, either as a route runner or with the ball in his hands after the catch, to be a wide receiver 1. Now, the reason why I said he's an adequate athlete is because I don't think, and I've got my tinfoil hat on, and I'm in the weeds here, the grassy knoll, if you will. I don't think his 40 time was real. And what I mean by that, Nu, don't arm me. You're Travis Hunter doubter. You don't get to arm me.
I am.
Nu, you know the combine, the NFL combine in the year of our Lord 2025, is still started by hand time. It's a bloke starting it. So there is always an element of human error in the 40. And the fact that he didn't run it again means that he was going to get nowhere near that time, right? If he ran, say, a 4.31 on his second go, his stock's not going to change, right? But if he ran, say, a 4.39, then suddenly everyone's going to go, well, that first time was clearly a lie. Now, he did not know other testing after running that 40. And rightly so. I'm not dogging on Matthew Golden. Like, if I did better than I thought I was going to do on a test, and I realized that the teachers marked it wrong, I'm not going to hand it back to the teacher to mark it correctly. Like, I'd be selling myself short there. So I'm not holding it against Golden, but no one who's watched his tape has said they ever saw sub 4.3 speed. That was the 10th fastest 40 in combine history. Like, Matthew Golden is not that player. He's just not that player. And that's where a lot of the hype is coming from for Matthew Golden, is that 40 time. The media consensus is closer to where I have him than I expected. 22 on the Athletic big board, 20 on the consensus big board. But I think fans are very high on Matthew Golden. I have him a bit like Jalon Walker. I have him as an early day 2 selection. I think actually, you missed a bit of lore about my wide receiver rankings. But I think he's my wide receiver 6.
I didn't think that's
or maybe 7. So yeah. I'm not in on Golden for where I would have to get him.
Yeah, I agree. For Golden, for me, I'm just very apathetic on him as a prospect, because I don't know, it's such a classic idea of like post draft. Some prospects rise, and I just think it's all media hype. I agree. I think he'll probably end up being drafted at the end of the first, bottom of the second. No,
I think he'll definitely be. I think he's definitely a first round player when it's all said and done.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think he's going to go in the first round?
I think he's definitely going to go in the first round.
Okay. So my last overrated player is, I've talked about it all draft season. You could probably guess it, Dom. It's Shemar Stewart, defensive end.
Nice. You know what? I'm with you.
Really? Have you finally come round? He's finally seen the light, seen the truth. Like you said with Golden, I don't think it'd apply better. You took the words out of my mouth for Shemar Stewart. I'm going to look at someone who's got doesn't have more than 1 sack in 3 years, and everyone's putting him on a pedestal as a top 10 pick. I do not see what they're seeing. He's obviously got those elite traits. He blew up the combine, blew up the Senior Bowl, but he fundamentally, he does have pressures, but he can't tackle very well and doesn't produce. And that the competition he's going up against is only going to get harder. I think he's a great second-round developmental player who needs time to sit and learn a few pass rush moves, learn a pass rush plan, and work on his tackling technique. But right here, right now, early in the draft cycle, he was going in the top 10, and I think that was
the Panthers after the draft.
Yeah, Panthers was one that I think we even said on this podcast was a possible pick, and I'm happy that he's gone back down. But like you said earlier, Dom, he's also been also going to the draft. He's also going to Vegas. So again, that makes you think something that we don't know. I think he's going to go in the first, and he's going to be overdrafted by a team who's picking traits over production, and I don't think that's a good call.
Yeah, I'm with you with Shemar Stewart. I've been on a roller coaster with him, and I was watching some more I was watching some more tape on him, and I was watching some more Will Campbell actually, and a lot of edge rushers in this class had a good game against Will Campbell. The one that didn't was Shemar Stewart, and out of like a good amount of pass rush snaps, not like RPOs where the quarterback's handing off, like proper pass rushing snaps, he did nothing against Will Campbell, who a lot of people are discussing, is he even an NFL tackle? Like, I would put him there. Sure, we're not having that discussion now. But Shemar Stewart, with one of the best athletic profiles we've ever seen from an edge rusher, right, got all the physical traits you could want, did nothing against a tackle who does not have the physical traits that NFL tackles are used to having, particularly with their arm length. So I'm with you, Nu. I'm with you. I was blinded by the combine.
The RAS score.
The combine, the RAS. And I mean, I do think that being an athlete is to a degree a prerequisite for success in the NFL level. However, you also need to actually be good at rushing the passer. And I don't think Shemar Stewart is that good at rushing the passer. Like, Brett Coleman's got a great meme which he's like taps the sign. Like, if he's good at rushing the passer, how come he doesn't rush the passer good?
Yeah,
so
the Moneyball.
Yeah, the Moneyball one, exactly. So I'm with you. I don't think I'm going to have Nick Scouton, I think, over Shemar Stewart, I think. And yeah, I think Shemar Stewart is being overrated 100%. So I do like that call out from you. You've semi redeemed yourself from the howler of that first one. And before we go to our underrated players, make sure you subscribe for more draft content. Road to 1,000. So hit that subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate the support. Now, I've got one more. Sorry, I've got one more. Today, my third and final overrated player is Jahdae Barron, the cornerback from Texas. Now, this guy is 7th on Trevor Sycamore's big board. He's 13th on the Athletic Consensus big board, and he has an average draft position on the PFF mock draft simulator of 14. This guy is a 5'10", 194-pound, pure zone corner who you want in off coverage in a cover 3 or quarters heavy scheme with his eyes on the quarterback at all times. He is not a press man cover corner who can play on the boundary every snap and can erase a team's number one wide receiver, right? He is not a Patrick Surtain. He is not a Sauce Gardner. He is not a Derek Stingley. Or a Travis Hunter. He is not that mold of cornerback. So I don't see how people are so high on this guy. Like, he can't play press. He's only really ever played zone coverage. He's not a plus athlete. Yeah, he had a good 40 time, but apart from his speed, which I question if we saw that play speed on tape, he is an average athlete and doesn't have plus physical tools either. He's got third percentile arm length. So to make a player in the NFL when you're seeing players in slow motion scrape the cornerback's outstretched fingers, Barron's is going to be off the screen because his arms are so damn short. Like, I like Barron. I do. I get what people see in him. Really experienced, super instinctual player who has amazing feel in zone coverage. And I saw Bucky Brooks say that the nickel position now in the NFL, that slot cornerback position, because more teams are living in 11 personnel, so one running back, one tight end, multiple wide receivers, that you do need a cornerback on the field who can play in the slot more so than ever before. And the NFL is now kind of coming around to that. NFL defenses are matching what NFL offenses are putting out there. So the value of nickels going up, and someone like Jahdae Barron, who I think would be better as a nickel rather than as a boundary corner, that is matching that. But I wouldn't draft a pure slot receiver with a top 15 pick. Like, I wouldn't take Luther Burden, I don't think, with a top 10. I definitely wouldn't take Luther Burden with a top 10 pick. I wouldn't, even a Lad McConkey, who I loved, I wouldn't take him with a top 10 pick. Like, fundamentally, your value is less. That sounds a bit harsh and a bit old dinosaurish of me, but I think draft-wise, fundamentally, your value is less if you do operate in the slot, whether that's defensively or offensively. So it's no hate to Barron. I just think the value, there's a disconnect, I think, between his position and his value.
I think that's harsh because I think so. Jahdae Barron was the Jim Thorpe winner this year, I think. So nation's best defensive back, and I think the year before's film was even better than this year. I think he's got 2 years of elite production and elite film, and I think you're relegating him a bit too much to be purely a slot corner. He played on the boundary, and he had 2 years of experience in the SEC. No,
only this year.
I thought he played last year on the boundary as well. No.
No. It was only an outside cornerback this year. Last year he was in the slot and was a potential first round pick even as a pure slot guy. But he was only taken. He was only a boundary corner this year.
But even so, he won the Jim Thorpe Award while playing that boundary.
Yeah, no, it was good.
I think
he's
proven to do it in the SEC against elite receivers, and I know that he's got short arms. I know that his weight isn't there, but he's going up against draftable receivers and playing at that standard. So I think what your criticisms are valid, but I still think you're being slightly harsh.
I wouldn't take him in the top 10 pick.
I think he's 10 to 15. I think that's the range I have. I have him 15 on my big board.
Just behind Travis Hunter. Okay, well, who then knew? Who then knew are your underrated players?
Shall I start off with another swing for the fences, or shall I ramp it up a bit?
Just give it to me.
Okay, so this is it depends. I'm going off the most recent draft trends with this player.
Okay.
But mine is quarterback Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. And
you're killing me here, New.
Hear me out. Okay,
I'm not going to say anything until you're done.
Okay, hear me out. So I don't think he's worth a top 3 pick. But I don't think that's where the consensus is nowadays. Would you agree with that, Dom?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think, but I've seen him fall all the way to the second round. But I don't agree with that either. And so this is more of a moderate take. I think Shedeur Sanders can be a Jared Goff style quarterback, can be a top 15 quarterback at the next level. He can be an above average player at the most important position of football. I think the criticism for Shedeur Sanders is that he needs a team around him to succeed. Right? I think he's a game manager that needs all the right pieces in place. At Colorado, he had one of the worst offensive lines in college football. They were absolutely terrible for almost both years. They improved his last year, but they improved his last year as a starter, but they weren't that good. I think he showed good production, almost elite production, with a good cast but a weak O-line that could easily translate to the NFL. I think people are looking for superstars far too often, and there's nothing wrong with a player who can be an above average starter in their position. That, for me, screams mid-first round pick, where I think he should go, not in the second. That's why he's underrated in my eyes.
All right, let's look through it. This is less egregious than the Travis Hunter one, because it is less extreme. But I have Sanders as a firm second rounder, 100% firm second rounder. And yes, you're right. You're not always looking for stars. Sometimes you just want someone that can play. However, my rebuttal to that, New, is who isn't a star quarterback-wise that has won Super Bowls recently?
Recently, it is a fair question. You could argue Jalen Hurts, but I'm not going to argue that's a different thing for another day.
Jalen Hurts is far superior to
I know.
And I don't even like
Eli Manning, Nick Foles. It has been done.
Nick Foles is probably the only one, realistically, right? In a league, hang on one second, in a league now which is dominated by the likes of Lamar Jackson, even someone like Joe Burrow, who's not physically gifted but is a fantastic quarterback. But let's leave him off the list. Someone like Lamar Jackson. We've got Patrick Mahomes, we've got Josh Allen, we've got people like Justin Herbert, we've got even someone like Jalen Hurts, who's a great rushing threat. This league is inherently now dominated by physically gifted quarterbacks. The only exception, I would say, is Joe Burrow. Now, you're going against the trend if you think that Shedeur Sanders is going to be able to take you to a Super Bowl, right? And I do think that your statement about the offensive line is true, right? His offensive line wasn't good, especially last year. But this year, the reason why his offensive line isn't good news is because he's the quarterback who owns the most of his own pressure rate. He holds onto the ball for way too long. His pocket movement is absolutely abysmal, drifts really far back. The tackles don't have the angle to block for that. And he gets sacked. And he holds onto the ball, for over 3 seconds. Caleb Williams in the NFL this year, who had a problem with the holding onto the ball for too long, held it for 3.1 seconds. He's holding onto the ball for almost as much as Caleb Williams, more than Jaden Daniels, and he does not play like that. He's not a rushing threat. I think with Sanders, if you are condemning yourself, I think, to quarterback purgatory, which is why I don't think he's worth a first overall pick, because you're getting a quarterback that has adequate physical tools at best, a weak arm. He's not a plus athlete, and I don't know how he's going to compete against quarterbacks that are far superior athletically and physically than he is. And people are going to say, "Oh, he wins like Joe Burrow with anticipation and timing." Yeah, rubbish. Shedeur Sanders is nowhere near the level of quarterback in terms of accuracy, timing, and anticipation as Joe Burrow. That is an insulting comparison.
I didn't say that.
I'm not saying you did. I'm saying people have.
That's what. So, Dom, I think you're sort of not arguing against my take directly, Because I'm not saying that he should be a top 3 pick and he's going to be, Tom Brady, be able to dissect the play and be the most arrogant quarterback, the most accurate quarterback in the league. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that players like Jared Goff led a team to a Super Bowl, led a team to an NFC Championship. Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, Nick Foles, all these players have won Super Bowls. And yes, there is a trend for these superstar quarterbacks. That is undoubtedly true. But I think to write off Shedeur Sanders as, quarterback purgatory as a second round pick, I think is overly harsh.
But that's what having a QB 12 to 15 is. It is quarterback purgatory. Not good enough to. It's like having Andy Dalton. It's basically, would you take Andy Dalton with the first overall pick?
No, would you take Jared Goff with the first overall pick? I think Jared Goff.
Yeah, no one would. Sorry, not first. Your first overall pick, not the first overall pick, because you're not saying top 3, and I agree with you.
No.
I just don't really see the point. Why bother? If you're the Saints at 9, why bother taking Sanders, who just resets your rebuild clock? I don't know what team he would work. Maybe the Rams.
I think Steelers would be a perfect fit for him. I think Steelers would be a great fit for Shedeur Sanders.
Well, look, that if they don't get Rodgers, they need a quarterback, and on draft day they might be looking to take Sanders. But I'm disagreeing with you there, Nu. I do have Sanders as a. I honestly wouldn't draft Sanders. I'd rather take a swing on Will Howard, on a Tyler Shook, on even a Jalen Milroe. I think you're getting just more upside.
Will Howard over. I'm not saying you're saying exactly that, but Will Howard or Tyler Shook. Tyler Shook was born in the 1990s, still.
Yeah, I was born in the 1990s. I still got it.
Yeah, I don't think your first round pick.
No, I wouldn't take him in the first.
No,
I
know.
Just get those guys in the third, fourth round.
I know you're saying that. I know you are.
Jesus, okay, all right. Well, it's getting juicy in this app. So, my first underrated player is James Pearce Jr., the edge from Tennessee. I've come all the way back round on James Pearce Jr. He is my clear edge 2 behind only Abdul Carter. I would take him as high as 8 to the Panthers. Now, I get why people are low on him, right? There's character concerns swirling around. I saw something which was that, he wasn't really bought into the team. It was always his own thing. He didn't really care about anything else. And I can't really speak to anything else like that. It's not like a really serious character concern where there's police are involved. So I just simply don't know. And there's nothing concrete enough out there for me to make a decision. But he is a 245-pound edge rusher, which is 7th percentile in weight, who plays like a power rusher, right? And so I get why people aren't enamored by him, and he doesn't have the perfect bend or great ankle flexion. I get it, but fundamentally, it's worked for him. He's got a 23% pass rush win rate. That goes up to 29.8% on true pass sets, right? Almost 30%. And he's so powerful for his size. He's so incredibly quick. He ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, which is 97th percentile, and had a 93rd percentile 10-yard split. He plays above his size. He sets a good edge in the run game. He's quick. He can rush the passer really well. His get-off is elite, even for NFL standards, I would say. He does kind of time the snap and is looking to, count down and beat it. He will get caught out with that a few times in the league, but fundamentally, it's worked, right? And even his ability to drop back as a kind of linebacker, essentially, in coverage is also super valuable. If he fell to the Vikings at 24, that would be a sprint the card in scenario for what they want to run, I think. He's 21st on the athletic big board, 31st on the consensus big board, 26th on Daniel Jeremiah's big board, average draft position of 26 on the mock draft. So he's firmly in the 20s, it seems. Like I said, he's a far closer player to a top 10 than he is to the top 20 for me, 100%. And again, I want to stress, character concerns, I've been burnt by that with Jermaine Burton last year, right? They are clearly an issue at the NFL sometimes. I just don't know enough about them. I haven't interviewed him. I haven't read anything concrete. So parking the character issues, he could be a great player.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. Just the character concerns. We recently watched Draft Day as a flat. I know what's his name? What's his surname?
I'll look it
up.
Oh
God, I can't remember. Bo Callahan. No one went to his birthday party, and that's why it wasn't actually liked. Tennessee's clearly something's a bit wrong there. with Nico Yamalava transferring because he didn't get the NIL deal. It seems all a bit weird at Tennessee, but for me, just the character concerns, I can't quite put him as underrated, but I do see where you're coming from.
Right, your second underrated.
So my second underrated player is. I don't quite get why he's underrated, but it's Tetairoa McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona.
I like that shout.
So he's my number 3 overall player on my big board. Before going to official draft season, he was number 1. And I really think he's a game changer at the wide receiver position. And I think, Dan Jeremiah has him as 16, PFF has him as a top 3 player. but people are just categorizing him as a poor man's Drake London, which I think is incredibly harsh and incredibly unfair. I do see the pro comp, but I think he's a better prospect than Drake London. I think he was probably going to be a better NFL player than Drake London. I think his size, speed, and athleticism is something that you can't teach. He does have some issues, in contested catches. He should probably play bigger. He translates more as a Drake London than a Megatron, for example. But I still think he's got game-changing traits that, I think should go as high as 4 to the Patriots. I think personally that's a better pick than Will Campbell. But at the moment, I'm seeing him to the Packers. I'm seeing, late first round pick, and I think that's absolute blasphemy.
I'm totally there with you. I'm totally there with you. Got me back on side. I don't know when it became cool to not like this guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we were all in the over the side. He's the only wide receiver in this class to put up 1,300 yards back to back in 2 seasons. He's fantastic with the ball in his hands, creating missed tackles, yards after the catch. He's a wide receiver 1. Like his ceiling might not be that high. I get it. He's not that quick off the line of scrimmage. He's got limited top speed. He's not great at releases. But I think his floor, you're getting Michael Pittman as a floor, I think, like an absolute floor. And that's well worth a top draft pick. If you're guaranteeing Michael Pittman, which I would feel good doing with Tetairoa McMillan, and I think his ceiling's higher than that, by the way. I don't think you're limited to Michael Pittman. I think you're looking at, say, even like a Nico Collins or a CeeDee Lamb for me is someone that I think wins in the same way. But I'm completely there with you. I like that shout from you. I've got a wide receiver as well as my second underrated player, and that is Kyle Williams from Washington State. Now, he started off as an offensive gem on our Offensive Gems episode. And in my wide receiver rankings I had him as my wide receiver 4.
Wow, okay.
I had him as my wide receiver 4 behind Tetairoa McMillan as 1, Travis Hunter as 2, if you were looking at him as wide receiver, Jaden Higgins as 3, and Kyle Williams as 4.
Wow, Luther Burden, number 5 or lower.
Luther Burden 6. Number 5 is Jalen Knoll.
Wow, okay.
So, Kyle Williams, I think, is being underrated. I believe in this guy. I know it's bold to have him as my wide receiver 4, but I believe in him. He's 90th on the Athletic consensus board. He's 90th on the consensus website. He's 65th on PFF and has an average draft position of 108. So this guy is definitely being underrated. And I just think he's going to be a good NFL player. Like, I feel really confident about that. I think he's got an unbelievable release package. I think the best in this class. He's an explosive big play threat. He's great after the catch, great at contested catch scenarios as well. He can literally do it all, I think. He's going to go, realistically, on day 2, maybe in round 3, because he's got no physical calling card, right? He's not an elite athlete. He did run a nice 40, but apart from that, he's not like big, tall, or strong. But I think he's going to be that classic receiver that like learns all of the names of the receivers drafted ahead of him and like recites them before Amon-Ra and Brown style. Basically, what I'm saying is that Kyle Williams is this year's Amon-Ra. Not the play style, but in terms of being drafted later and massively surpassing that draft status, Kyle Williams.
I like that, Dom. I haven't actually watched that much of his film. I think I'm a bit normie with my wide receiver rankings, but I definitely need to get around to watching more Kyle Williams before the draft rolls around.
He's a boy.
Okay, so my final underrated player sort of partners with my first overrated player. My final underrated player is Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan.
No, I like that.
Again, he's someone, I think just prospect fatigue, I think is the main reason why he slid down boards. I think it's an issue with a lot of the Michigan players. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham. They're just really good, and especially at corner. Will Johnson didn't even get tested that much. He almost suffered from success, that DJ Khaled meme. He wasn't able, he didn't get the highlights that people were expecting. He didn't get those flash plays like Travis Hunter did. So I think in the consensus of it, like in the media mainstream, Will Johnson's just been falling down boards. Will Johnson went from the consensus number 1 overall corner to being behind Jahdae Barron, being behind, being a mid-first round pick, late first round pick even. And I think that's absolute blasphemy. He's a solid top 10 pick for me. I'm not going to be as much as a hot take merchant as to say he's a better cornerback than Travis Hunter. I think I've run out of my hot take usage for the day. But I don't think calling him a 1A or 1B is ridiculous. I think Will Johnson can really be a shutdown man-to-man corner at the next level and is definitely worth a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well, Neil. I think you're right. Will Johnson has suffered from prospect fatigue, has suffered from... I think there was questions about his effort later in the season when Michigan were definitely not making the playoffs. I think that kind of threw a few red flags to people. He also didn't run a great 40 either, which, again, with fans who look at the kind of the 40 times and put a lot more stock in it than it's probably worth, that's a part of the reason why he's fallen. But I'm with you. He's still a top 10 player for me. I would take him at Saint. I'd like 9 to the Saints. I think is a great selection for them. Like, I think he is in that mold of a Patrick Surtain, a Derek Stingley, a Sauce Gardner, and those are the guys that play. Like, I'm right there with you. And you mentioned actually my final underrated player, his Michigan teammate, and that is Kenneth Grant. I think this guy offers just rare ability as a run-stuffing nose tackle who can also be a very decent pass rusher, and I think has a ceiling that is higher than simply being a decent pass rusher. He's been great this year with basically zero technique, right? This guy's absorbing double teams like a plank of wood, right? There is no sinking of his hips. There is no corkscrew technique, which is when the defensive linemen kind of spin and get down on one knee and try and kind of break it by pivoting, basically. He's winning on vibes alone out there, and he's still doing it really well. And I think if you just sprinkle in like a little bit of coaching with this guy, and obviously you hope he gets more than a little bit of coaching in the NFL, but if you just coach this guy enough, I think what you're getting is this ball of clay that could be one of the better one of the better nose tackles in the league, frankly. Like, he moves so well for 331 pounds. He's 91st percentile weight. This guy is a man and a half, right? And he's shown flashes of being a really good pass rusher, showed a really good swim move. He's really quick. And if you can harness that and channel it and coach it, I think you're going to get a damn good player. And what I'll say with Kenneth Grant is that he might not have the stats or the highlight reel at the end of the season. That is the nature of playing nose tackle, right? And he, for the record, Kenneth Grant is going to play nose, which is head up right over the center. He's not going to play kind of in between the center or the guard, or in between the guard and the tackle, which is where Mason Graham will play. Kenneth Grant's going to play head up over the center. He's going to play in the A gap or a heads up, and that's a nose tackle. And those guys absorb double teams. They make plays in the run game. They're not really there to be the cool, flash, Aaron Donald-esque players. But he will be the unsung hero of a defense. I truly believe that. I think someone that's going to draft him, they're going to see the defensive stats rise, and everyone's going to go, oh my God, what's happened this year? Well, you drafted Kenneth Grant, and he's really damn good. So he's going to be a top 15 player for me. Not a hugely underrated player, I appreciate, but he is going a bit later than that, and I think he deserves his flowers.
Yeah, it makes you think to the Clemson defensive tackle pair that got drafted, Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence.
Yes.
Obviously, it's not an exact size, it's not an exact comparison. But again, Dexter Lawrence played nose for most of his career. Finally, year 6, one of the best defensive players in football. Same with Christian Wilkins. Got a big contract to the Raiders. Both of them sort of lowered their own draft stock somehow because they're both so good and they work in tandem. But I completely agree. I think Kenneth Grant is definitely a top 15 player.
Right, well, there we go. So apart from, really, the Travis Hunter overrated and Shedeur Sanders underrated takes from you, we're kind of in agreement with all the players that we have. You can see all of our overrated and underrated players now on the screen. And let us know what you think about them in the comments. And do go easy on Nu. We all make mistakes sometimes. I've had my blunders. Nu's had his. He's just the most recent one now on this video. But make sure you subscribe for more draft content. And I've been your host, Dom Corbs. That's my co-host, Nick Corbs. We'll see you on the next video.
See ya.